Good morning, my name is Lauren. Like many students, I find doing homework to be a tedious task, so to make things less boring, I'll turn on the TV. I'll also watch YouTube to entertain myself while I practice the piano. In other words, I multitask. Multitasking can be simply defined as dealing with more than one task at a time. Multitasking is becoming increasingly common in everyday life and activities, and it is widely accepted as the norm. With continual advancements in technology and increasingly busy schedules, people are constantly texting, calling, surfing the web, listening to music, or checking their social media while performing other tasks. Whether it's doing homework while watching TV or listening to music while you clean the house, you are multitasking. Or are you? The truth is, most of the time, you aren't. Human brains are actually incapable of performing two tasks that require brain power at the same time. So what we call multitasking is really just our brains quickly switching between tasks. The cerebral cortex of the brain handles executive controls that are divided into two stages. The first stage is goal shifting. This is changing your attention and focus between tasks. The second stage is rule activation. Different tasks require different methods of thinking, so the brain has to switch methods of functioning in order to complete these different tasks. So, multitasking is really just switching the rules and goals in our brain in an attempt to simultaneously complete multiple tasks. The vast majority of us are convinced that multitasking is helping us save time. However, studies have shown that multitasking actually decreases productivity by up to 40%. Each switch of the brain only takes tenths of a second, but that all adds up over time. And as tasks become more complex and difficult, it takes the brain even longer to perform these switches, increasing the amount of time wasted. Tenths of a second may seem insignificant in most cases, but in an activity such as driving, where your absolute focus is required, each fraction of a second could mean the difference between life and death. The National Safety Council reports that cell phone use while driving causes 1.6 million car crashes each year. This could easily be avoided if people just stopped trying to multitask and started focusing where their attention is required. Multitasking also has harmful effects on cognitive abilities, memory, IQ, and even EQ. In a 2009 study by Stanford researcher Clifford Nass, it was discovered that heavy multitaskers are actually worse at switching tasks than light multitaskers, and this makes them more mentally unorganized. This chart shows the data collected by a test run by the National Academy of Sciences. Participants were asked to answer a series of questions as they faced distractions, and these distractions increased over time. The data shows that as the distractions increased, the number of correct responses from high multitaskers plummeted, while the number of correct responses from low multitaskers remained relatively the same. What this means is that high multitaskers are actually worse at multitasking than low multitaskers. There is also a strong correlation between heavy multitasking and lower cognitive abilities. This causes difficulty in distinguishing important information from irrelevant information, as well as impaired critical thinking. Furthermore, medium multitaskers, or people who simultaneously use several types of media, do considerably worse on memory tests. Multitasking can also lower your IQ. A study conducted by the University of London shows that multitasking during cognitive tasks has similar effects on IQ as smoking marijuana or pulling an all-nighter. On average, the IQ of a heavy multitasker will drop between 10 and 15 points, and this puts the common person equal in IQ to the average 8-year-old. It is very alarming to know that something as innocent as multitasking could have such dramatic effects on intelligence. However, what surprised me even more than the drop in IQ is the drop in EQ. Studies from the University of Sussex found that heavy multitaskers experience less feelings of empathy and less emotional control. Although we don't know exactly why this occurs, data shows a strong correlation between heavy medium multitaskers and less gray matter density in the anterior cingulate cortex of the brain, which is the part of the brain responsible for feelings like empathy and emotional control. The medium multitasking index, or MMI, of a person reflects how heavy of a multitasker they are. This chart here shows that as MMI increased, the amount of gray matter density in the anterior cingulate cortex of the brain decreased, which means that this person's empathy levels also decreased. These effects of multitasking on the brain are especially relevant to children and teens. Teens today are constantly scrolling through social media while performing other tasks. Dividing your attention and allowing yourself to become distracted could cause serious long-term damage to the sensory connections in your brain, which are still developing in teens. Our lives today are busier than ever. Whether it's to save time, for enjoyment, or just because you're easily distracted, everyone multitasks. Many of us have fallen for the myth that multitasking is benefiting our lives, when the truth is it has negative effects on productivity, quality of work, and the brain's cognitive and social functions. I can guarantee you all that you will notice positive changes in your life if you just focus on one thing at a time. I found that devoting all my attention to one task allows me to live in the moment without any outside distractions. It allows me to become more aware of the minute details that I've missed in the past, and this brings new perspective into activities that I've been participating in for years. I encourage you all to notice how multitasking is affecting your lives and make changes where necessary to ensure greater success and overall enjoyment of life in the future. Thank you.